Hello, everyone. Welcome to Urban Mysteries, the show where we like to talk about dark and the macabre. If you like talking about the dark and creepy stuff that go bump in the night, then this is your safe space. My name is Jay, and with me is co-host V. Say hello, V.
Hey, everybody.
So the way this works is you guys pick a dark and creepy topic, anything really ranging from dark haunted locations, gruesome real-life murder mysteries, to supernatural mysteries. We pick one, do our research, and have a discussion about it. Seeing as how this is our first episode, let's just kick it off with the topic we chose ourselves. So V, what's our topic tonight?
Tonight we'll be discussing an old folklore known as La Llorona, or the Weeping Woman in English. Have you heard about this one, Jay?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have heard about it before growing up, faintly. I don't come from... I know that the La Llorona is Mexican folklore. I don't come from a Mexican family, but Spanish, so the name has floated around a couple of times.
Well, it is a common story in pretty much most of Central and South America. Pretty much any child that came from any kind of Hispanic background is pretty familiar with La Llorona.
Pretty much.
It's actually it is an old Mexican folklore. It was told to children. Not sure if it is still. It's kind of a scary story. I don't know if they're still telling it to kids.
I mean, my parents never told it to me. I just heard about it, I guess, just in conversation, and it came up in movies sometimes. Maybe I read about it once or twice online, maybe from friends, but my parents never told it to me. My parents never really gave me one of those creepy stories to keep kids in line type of thing.
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah, that's what it is. It's a creepy story to keep kids in line, right? It was like a warning to children not to go out in the dark, or La Llorona may snatch you up.
Yeah.
Right? And La Llorona, pronounce yo like yo-yo, right?
Yeah. Double L, so it's the Y sound in English, Llorona. But yeah. What's it called? It's
double L.
The double L. Yeah. Well, it's the double L in Spanish, but it's a Y sound in English. The story is it's pretty prevalent around Spanish culture.
I did grow up listening about El Ropa Vejero, or as we know, the boogeyman.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right?
One. That one. I mean, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say that one I have heard about a lot more, but like I said, my parents were never the ghost storytelling type. But I did hear about that one more.
Yeah. And
yeah.
That'll be a topic for another day. But basically, the folklore of La Llorona it starts off as a woman named Maria, who's dressed in a white robe and tends to walk up and down the bank of a river or a canal, any body of water really in the area of Mexico. And usually she's found to be crying and asking where are her children. She'll be like, where are my children? And she'll be wailing and crying, which is why eventually she got the name Weeping Woman, or La Llorona, which is basically the weeping woman, or the crying woman, really. Over time, different variations of stories exist, which we'll get into in a second. But pretty much she will she'll take your kids, or if she finds children wandering at night, she takes them with her and never see them again.
Yeah. I know that the story specifically about La Llorona, it's geared more towards kids. She has an obsession with hurting kids, and it's weird. It's not that she's obsessed with hurting kids. You're gonna tell the story right now in just a second, but even though she's not obsessed with hurting kids, she wants to find her kids, but in the process of finding it, the legend is that she hurts any child or group of kids that she comes in contact with. But go ahead.
Yes and no, really. It's her reasonings, they change by story. It's such an old folklore that really the origin of it is not really able to be narrowed down. We know that it's hundreds of years old, way back from even before the era of the conquistadors. But I did find one of the more popular origin stories, which is the one that I basically grew up knowing, and the one that, as far as I know, a lot of people are familiar with, which is which is a pretty sad story actually. So it's about this woman named Maria. She was considered to be a very beautiful woman, and of course it made her very vain and arrogant. Because she was considered the most beautiful woman of her village and everything. So she would often state that she would marry the most handsome man in the world, and none of the men in her village were good enough for her. And she ended up finding the man of her dreams, basically. And some stories say that he was a Spaniard man. Some stories don't specify. And eventually they had 2 kids together. But over time, her husband grew tired of her and started to ignore her and was paying more attention to the children. Eventually, he went back to his lifestyle of partying and staying out all night and things like that. And he would often be with other mistresses and all this stuff. So little by little, Maria's anger started turning inward onto her own children because, her husband would pay attention to her kids, but not to her. And what ended up happening is that one day she's walking down a riverbank, walking down the road really with her children when he pulls up in a carriage. He has one of his mistresses with him, and basically stops the carriage to talk to his children, but completely ignores Maria, does not even acknowledge that she's there. And then he heads off with his mistress. So in a moment of freaking rage, he just got ignored in the middle of the road. She ended up, all that jealousy just turned inward towards her kids, and she threw them into the river. They ended up getting washed down the river. She, realizing what she had done, she runs down the bank of the river, trying desperately to reach for her children, trying desperately to get them out of the river, but eventually she just loses sight of them. She's never able to recover her kids, and she mourns the children for days and nights. She stopped eating. She stopped pretty much doing anything other than walking the riverbank trying to find her kids, until eventually her body gave out and she was found one morning collapsed, and she was dead by the riverbank. In the story, the people of the village say that they buried her in a white robe right by the riverbank, and that's pretty much how the whole folklore of it starts. And that they would often see this woman in white walking up and down the riverbank, calling out for her children.
Yeah, that's pretty much the story that I grew up hearing about. She was just always this faint figure in white with black hair. You never really truly see the face. Kind of like I guess you can compare it to The Grudge. You know how The Grudge has black hair, but it's always covering her face. That kind of figure silhouette, just long hair, but always covering.
I think I would compare her more to the girl from The Ring.
Yeah.
Because she's got that white robe.
Typical ghost sighting. White
right?
figure, black hair, no face, no identity. So it's so convenient. But yeah, I guess that's the original what's it called, description of what La Llorona is. But you told me earlier that there was another version of it, right?
Yeah.
That this version goes.
Yeah.
This version goes
there
even
is
older
another
than
version. Well, this version is just as old. Like I said, there's no way to know which version is the correct one or which version came before or after. It's such an old folklore that it's really been lost to time. We tried looking for any specific dates, any specific points in time when
these are
the origin started, but it's been passed down.
None of these stories have any basis in time, because notice how the first description that you told me didn't mention anything about the time or the year. However, this next version that you're going to tell me, that you told me earlier, you can at least pin it down to a year, because there's a well-known name in the story. So yeah. So this version, you can pretty much narrow it down to the era of the conquistadors. So pretty much in this version, it pretty much states that La Llorona is actually Doña Marina, or La Malinche, which was Cortez's lover and interpreter at the time. Now, quick, before you continue, just let the viewers know, Cortez, his first name was Hernan Cortez. So he was a famous Spanish or Spaniard explorer. Yeah.
Well, he was a Spaniard conquistador.
Yes.
Those conquistadors. But yeah, and pretty much she was considered a traitor by her people, by the Mexica, or really Mexica. Like for those of you that don't know, Mexico, though in English pronounced Mexico, the X is actually more like an H. So in Spanish it's pronounced Mexico. So you know, if you ever hear someone say Mexico, it's just a difference in pronunciation of the letter. And of course, you know, she was considered a traitor by the Mexica people because she pretty much denounced her own nationality, denounced anything that related to her own homeland, and was inviting of foreign natures, foreign nationalities. So basically betrayed her people and joined Hernan Cortez and his people and everything. So she turned her back on her own culture. So it actually created the word malinchismo in Spain, which refers to that, a person that denounces their own nationality for that of a foreign one.
When you told me, I actually took the liberty of going online. I actually found a third version of the story. It's a very brief overview of a version. There's not a lot of details in it, but actually, basically, the third version I found online was it says that she was known as, and I'm gonna try to pronounce this as best as I can, and if I mispronounce it, don't be surprised. She's known as Chihuacolte or Chihuacotel, something like that. Basically, she was a famous. What do you call those people who just have visions of something that's coming? A
seer?
An oracle, yeah.
Oracle.
She was an oracle during the days of the Aztec Empire, kind of like the people who made that famous calendar that the end of the world was based on during that era, and she was known for bemoaning about the coming Spanish explorers. So apparently, she saw that there were not literally saw. She had a vision that there were Spanish explorers coming to their land, and it was basically spelling out the end of their Aztec empire. And when she had this vision, she was always refusing and complaining and moaning about this event that was going to come to pass, and that's how she the story of her came to be. That's the third version of the Weeping Woman. All right, so go ahead.
You know, hearing all three versions of this, the Cortez and the Aztec one don't really make sense to me in terms of like how La Llorona's folklore is, because she's supposedly, you know, she a lot of times you see her walking up and down when there's sightings of her. She's usually near a body of water, and she's usually trying to lure you in, and she doesn't just lure children in. Depending on the context of the story, you know, her actions can be more cruel than others. But our research showed that she'll lure men, she'll lure women, pretty much anyone that mistreats family. She'll lure them in, and pretty much what she does is that once she gets you in the water, she'll drown you. She'll take you, you drown, you die, you're not coming back, and she'll do this to children too.
What's it called? Like you said before, La Llorona is such an old story that, similar to a lot of things in history, they start to be retold in other people's fashions. So the most famous one was the first one you said, where she basically killed her kids, and then she came to and realized what she did, and then she ran after. There's more details after the story. Basically, in that story that you told, in case the audience doesn't know, when she did end up dying because she didn't eat, she just died trying to find her kids. In the story, when she made it to heaven, she was refused entrance into heaven until she brought her kids. So then she was forced to always roam the world looking for her kids. And the reason why it's a ghost story is basically to keep kids in line, is because she would grab any kid that she comes across. Mind you, this is a story. And she would take you into the river in order for her to get to heaven to see if they would let her in. Is it this one?
Is it this one?
All right, let me go back and grab some more.
Is it this one?
Basically, yes. So it's always a perpetual cycle of kids constantly being killed by La Llorona by being dragged into the water.
Which, if you really think about it, is she really trying to get into heaven?
I mean, I don't, honestly,
you're taking.
I mean, at
kids
this
and
point, I
drowning
don't think
them.
in the story she really cares about the kids. She's just trying to get her ticket into heaven at that point. Now,
just let me in.
Go ahead.
There are variants of the story though where it says that she was not responsible for the death of her kids, that they were actually murdered, and there are variants where the husband threw the kids into the river. There are variants where she was thrown into the river.
Oh, I never heard of those versions.
And, yeah, they're very mild variants of the same story. So again, it's really hard to pinpoint like which one is the actual like origin of the legend. But at the end of the day, you'll have common denominators is river, kids.
True.
And she killed you.
Basically, the most common thing about La Llorona is what's said about her is that she's always going to be spotted near a body of water, and she's always going to be roaming Mexican territories, that being Mexico, New Mexico, and she's even sometimes been spotted as far as Michigan, which is kind of weird to me. I never like researched that far into that, but I read somewhere online that she's been spotted even that far. Of course, near a body of water. It wasn't just on a random road inland.
Yeah, she's usually always found by a body of water. There's actually been quite a few sightings. Now, I don't know if I see a lady dressed in white, maybe back in like the 1600s, I would probably question it, maybe see if she's okay. Lady dressed in a white robe in 2018?
To be honest, in 2018, she would probably have the worst luck finding any kids, because anyone with half a brain and a cell phone would just see her and then just keep on driving. And if their car breaks down and they see her, they pretty much just say, "I'm staying in the car." And that's it. I mean, there's no getting to anyone. We've truly become disconnected even from La Llorona, even in 2018.
La Llorona's having a hard time getting some kids.
2018 is proving to be a rough year for her. Now, I did find some stories online that these are I found one particular one that really interested me that I wanted to read. This is a personal encounter of the weeping woman, and it was in Texas, of course, in Texas, because it's really close to Mexico. Makes sense.
That makes sense.
And I wanted to see if I could read this story out to you. This is basically the personal account of a family of 3 in Texas. Let me see if I can pull it up. Give me 1 second.
So, guys, if you have any particular stories, any urban legends in particular that you want us to discuss, put them in the comments down below. We'll pick the most popular one, and that'll be our next topic for our next episode.
All right. So here's the story. It's called "Phantom Woman in White" in San Juan, Texas.
All right. I'm listening.
So basically goes like this. My parents were teenagers at the time, and my mother was pregnant with my older sister. They lived with my grandparents in a tiny house, which was rented from Don Octavio in First Street. The house was a one-bedroom shack, so my parents would sleep on the kitchen floor. One hot summer night, my parents had been arguing before bed and went to sleep angry at each other. The entrance door of the house was in the kitchen where they slept, and they were accustomed to leaving the main door open with the screen door shut so that they could get some kind of breeze through the house. My mother was falling asleep when suddenly a gust of wind blew the screen door wide open. She opened her eyes and tried to get up to shut the screen door, but couldn't. She couldn't move or talk, like as if she was paralyzed. Then in came a lady in white, with long black hair and no feet, or rather, she couldn't see the feet. Like if she was floating, suspended in the air. From the kitchen floor, my mom could only stare in horror as the lady floated towards them. She stopped on top of my pregnant mother's belly and proceeded to put immense pressure on her stomach. My mother couldn't move, much less scream. She managed to turn her head towards my father and saw that my father was aware of what was going on the whole time. He also was paralyzed and could not do anything about it. He then turned his head towards her and made eye contact with my mother. At that instant, they both let out a horrible scream of fear. My grandfather got out from his room and turned the kitchen light on. He yelled at them, "What the hell is wrong with you?" Both my parents, crying and scared, told my grandfather what had happened. My grandfather noticed the screen door open and ran outside to see if he could catch the intruder. Nothing. Only the neighborhood dogs barking and howling like crazy. He came back and didn't believe them and brushed it off as if it was a dream they were both having. He claimed they both had the same nightmare. The screen door was still wide open and made a crushing sound as if it slammed shut. My parents screamed louder as that happened. Go ahead.
Okay, hold up. I'm sorry. I need to put in some 2 cents here on this. So the grandfather literally tells them that they had the same dream. What are the chances of 2 people having the exact same dream?
Let me just also mention that this grandfather is Mexican. So he's completely dismissing his own culture's story.
But, he just saw, that the screen door, the screen door is open. Even if it's not a freaking ghost lady attacking them, the screen door that obviously they must have had closed is open, and the dogs are going crazy. Someone was either there.
Yeah, there's a couple of red flags here that the grandfather clearly ignored.
I mean, how do you just ignore that?
He chose to. So here's... Exactly.
Dogs are howling like crazy. My conclusion is either it was La Llorona, which it doesn't make any sense to me why she'd be in the bedroom of a house away from water.
Well, there's water in the faucet.
But either it was the La Llorona. there is water in the
just
faucet.
Just shove the faucet down her throat and just drown her there.
Oh, man. Oh, she came out
there
of the
you
bathtub.
go. Perfect. There's water in the house and bathtub. You can drown them there. Simulate a river.
There's always water in the toilet, okay? Always. But my theory is that there was some crazy lady
They weren't even in the bedroom. They were sleeping in the kitchen on the kitchen floor. Because it was a one-bedroom shack, and the grandfather, being the oldest one, has the bedroom.
Oh.
So basically, the screen door opened, and they were right there in front of her face.
Okay, so she was at the
screen door busted open, and then she walked into the house. But immediately as she walked in, they were right in front of her, and she goes straight to her.
So you have option A is a ghostly figure of a mourning mom. Option B, crazy lady dressed up as La Llorona, ready to kill everybody.
And
doesn't explain the sleep paralysis, which is weird.
It doesn't explain that part, right?
And I just want to make it clear to everybody, I am a believer in the supernatural. I do believe in ghosts. It's not my first thing to jump to when something happens. Like, if I hear a sound, I don't immediately say, oh, it's a ghost. I try to narrow down logical reasoning.
The door is slammed shut. It must have been the devil.
And shifting. It was the devil. No, I mean, obviously there's things like the wind, the creaking and movement of old wood and stuff in houses. I always try to narrow it down to some logical explanation.
I want to make something clear to the audience. Sorry to interrupt you, but I want to make something clear to the audience. You just told the audience that you believe in ghosts, right?
Yes.
Even though I like the subject matter, like we mentioned in the beginning, that this is your safe space for the dark and the macabre. I love that stuff. I don't particularly believe in ghosts, but I want to experience it. Some people will look at me and say, Jay, you're so stupid for wanting to experience it. That's the kind of thing that people try their whole lives to not experience. So I don't believe it, but I'm curious about the experience.
It's an interesting subject matter for you. I got you. I personally have had experiences with my brother, with the witness. I've had animals act weird out of the blue for no apparent reason. I don't know. I'm just saying that sometimes there are things that happen that just are kind of hard to explain. I mean,
there have been some none of mine. Actually, I lie. There's maybe two experiences that I had in my life. one that was more intense than the other.
Listen, Jay, you could have an entire poltergeist event, an entire kitchen flip over, and you'll still be like, it was the wind.
I mean, let's face it. I want to see something. But don't we all?
But what if we can't see it because it's like in another dimension?
I know, but that... Now, hold on. This is a
different... Now we're getting into...
This is different.
Crazy.
Now we're getting into the realm of, like, Doctor Strange, different dimension, and Stranger Things.
We just can't see it from this dimension, man.
Like, you know that... Like I know we're going off tangent, but you know that scene... by the way, spoilers if no one's seen it. You know that scene from Doctor Strange?
No. Wait, no spoilers.
Hello? Listen. If someone hasn't seen it, there's something wrong with you. Go see it. All right. So, the scene in Doctor Strange towards the end where he's on the surgery table and she's about to insert the syringe, but he's fighting someone while he's his. Exactly. So, like, you know how things in the physical world are being affected by, but she couldn't. But right?
She couldn't see them.
Exactly. So I think like they're in the same space, just in a different realm. I think we might have solved it, but let's continue. So let's continue.
Yeah. All right. Back to the grandfather who
completely dismissed their practically damn near murder. So, my grandfather, as he turned the light off and went back to his room, told them, "Es what? Es el diablo. It's the devil because you're always fighting."
Wait, what? What?
So
did he not?
He pretty much. So wait a minute, let me get this straight. So he pretty much said, "You guys are crazy. You had the same dream. Good night. By the way, it's the devil. You guys are always fighting. Bye." What?
It's like it was nothing, guys. You had the same dream. But the devil's out to get you. Make up your mind, man.
This guy is nuts. Talk about the perfect way of raising your kids. So let's see. Perfect. Kind of a mean remark from my grandfather, but I guess that was his way of using a situation to prove a point. My parents were left there on the kitchen floor, scared, crying, and hugging each other. The following day, some neighbors claimed they heard La Llorona, the weeping woman, scream in the middle of the night. It was probably your screams they heard, my grandfather joked. After that night, my mother had some episodes of sleepwalking out of the house and towards a canal that was a few blocks away. My father would wake up in the middle of the night and wouldn't find her next to him. He would eventually find her near that canal and bring her home. The sleepwalking episodes ended after they finally moved out of that house. The end.
So La Llorona was out to get mom.
Actually, I believe that La Llorona was out to get the child in her. And because she was pregnant.
Because she was pregnant. I get you. Damn, she's not even waiting until he's out of the oven?
Like, that is
Impatient
a fetus.
much?
I'm going to take it and see if I can get it to heaven. So, that was pretty much... So, I thought that was actually a pretty creepy story. What do you think?
No, yeah, that's a pretty creepy story. I mean, you can even if it had nothing to do with like La Llorona or any ghostly kind of supernatural being, I do think somebody came into their house. It could have been some crazy lady with a knife. We don't know. It's still a very creepy story. It's still very scary.
There's there's one thing I wanted to go over real quick, and because it leads into other topics, and we might not be able to cover it all in this episode, but they specifically mentioned that they couldn't move, which is sleep paralysis. Now, that's weird. And the reason why is because as many times as I've read about sleep paralysis, it's not about the weeping woman. Specifically sleep paralysis, and stop me if you think this is the topic for another episode, so you can go into more details. Sleep paralysis is usually because there is a well-known demon, or there is a demon that sits on your chest and keeps you down so that your mind is awake, but your body is still in a sleeping state. That's basically sleep paralysis. But that demon isn't the weeping woman. So it's almost like they were bombarded by two different demonic presences. One was a weeping woman, and the other one was some demonic presence keeping them pinned down.
It's possible. And guys, let us know in the comments if you want us to
actually
talk about
more specifically. Let us know in the comments if you yourself had any specific experience from the weeping woman or sleep paralysis, and see if you can go into detail about that in the comments.
Also, it'd be cool to see what part of our audience are believers
definitely
and non-believers. It's equal opportunity
sure.
on this.
I want to know a couple
show,
of things.
guys.
Number one, how many of you had experiences with a weeping woman? How many of you had experiences with a weeping woman? How many of you had experiences of sleep paralysis? How many of you are believers and non-believers? And how many of you hated that I mispronounced a lot of words during this session? And names. Like Chihuahua. It definitely wasn't Chihuahua. Or, you know what? Actually, it was.
We apologize.
No disrespect.
No disrespect. Spanish.
Yes.
Spanish is our second language.
You're listening to...
But sometimes we royally screw it up.
Cuban. So, Mexican is not our forte. Actually, oh my God. Mexican is not our forte.
Oh my God.
Hold on a second.
What
the Mexican dialect is not our forte. There we go. No, we're gonna have to listen. This is us. So this is us, and it's staying in, and people are gonna hear it. But it's the only way we get better at this.
Guys, just ignore Jay.
All right, guys,
just ignore Jay. Anyway, again, in this show, guys, we're gonna be exploring multicultural, different supernatural phenomenons, haunted locations, things like that. We'll always be having a conversation. But we want to keep it raw and real. So a lot of times you're going to hear stuff like Jay says.
You're going to hear a lot of it. So get used to it, guys.
And please, no disrespect. All right. We do mispronounce some words in Spanish. It is not our first language.
And we do occasionally say things like, I don't speak Mexican or American. He just said it.
And
I'll leave that. Don't worry.
I can't with you. I can't. Anyway, so regarding the sleep paralysis, which we will get into, you guys will find that a lot of times certain topics that we tangent into will reoccur in other episodes because, they all interconnect somehow. But regarding the sleep paralysis, I can actually say that I've experienced sleep paralysis once in my life.
And let me interrupt you real quick. I would like to have an episode to have you describe that situation. Basically tell the story in detail. Because I think it's very interesting. Yeah, that's for another day. I want our audience to listen to because I think it was very interesting and very chilling.
Jay doesn't believe me though. He thinks I'm full of crap, but I'll tell you right now, if Jay did have a supernatural experience, he'd be the first one out the door.
Probably. You'll probably be the first one I call. You'll be the first one I call.
Don't call.
Say, hey, listen, we need to make an episode out of this, but you need to come over here quick.
Did it happen in your house? Then I'm not showing up. It's all about avoiding issues. All right. But anyway, so going back to our subject at hand. So, Jay, you had found a CCTV video, was it, of La Llorona supposedly on film?
Basically, it's a
what is this?
It's a recording of La Llorona. Excuse me. It's a recording of La Llorona from CCTV in Mexico City. And basically, since we're already nearing the end of the episode, I think it'd be fitting if we just leave you guys with the video playing so that you can see it with some chilling atmosphere music. There we go, some chilling atmosphere music. And leave your comments on the bottom of the video and let us know if you think it was real, if you think you've seen anything similar, and if you've seen something like a recording of La Llorona that I myself or V hasn't been able to find online, please leave a link to it in the description below. Not description, the comment section below, and let us know because I want to be able to see those things and include it maybe in future episodes. All right. So I guess I'll just I'll leave it here, and I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. V, do you have anything you want to say before we sign out?
No, I mean, I hope everybody enjoyed the episode. And you'll hear from us again soon. We hope to see some comments, see what our next topic is.
You have a good one, guys. This is J and V signing out. See ya.
Bye.